Welcome to The Garden, a channel and practical solution for turning data into information. In our previous video, linked below, we use filters to find patterns in a data table. In this video, I'm using data from the 2022 NBA regular season to build a first graph in Microsoft Excel and showcase the benefit of data visualization. First, let's define the elements and goal of the analysis. We will build a typical input-output graph with the average minutes per game as our input and the average point per game as our output. We will then use our data visualization to pick a lineup of 5 players plus a bench player. Here's a look at our final product. To create our visual, we first need to select our input and output from our dataset. To do so, select cell D1 and E1. Then, press and hold together Ctrl Shift down arrow. The next step is to pick a good chart for our data and our goal. Go to the menu bar and under the Insert tab, click on the arrow within the group of icons labeled as Charts. You have the option to use the recommended chart for Microsoft Excel, or pick a different visual from the tab labeled All Charts. Let's go with the X and Y scatter chart because it's the best match for our input and output space. Done. We now have our first chart. However, it is far from ready for our goal. The first thing we notice is that the dots representing our data point are concentrated in a small area of the chart. And yes, we need to label our axis. Our input, the average minutes per game, is shown on the horizontal axis, and our output, the average point per game, is on the vertical axis. Our data points are all located to the right of the 25 minutes per game and above the 10 point per game. Let's change the starting point for both axes to reflect this reality. Right-click on the horizontal axis and then select the option Format Axis using the left key of your mouse. Now, Excel displays a list of settings you can use to change elements on your visual. We are interested with the list under Axis option, mainly the value for the start and end point of the horizontal axis. Let's set the minimum value to 25 instead of the default value, which is currently set to 0. Next, let's do the same for the vertical axis. This time, we want to set the minimum value to 10. Our data points are now contained within the relevant boundaries. This is much better. Next, let's use the median to divide players in 4 distinct groups. We will then use these newly created groups to select our starting 5 and a bench player. The median is the value that divides our list of players in 2 equal parts when values are ordered from smallest to largest. Excel has a built-in function called median that does just that. The function takes a set of values and returns the median. Here's how we use a built-in function in Excel. First, we enter an equal sign in any given cell and type in the name of the function we want to use. In this case, we're looking for the function median. Then, we need to pass a set of values to our function. To select the full range of values in the column average minutes per game, let's use the following keys again. Ctrl, Shift, down arrow. Great, we now have a median value for both the average minutes per game and the average point per game.
Now, let's add the median as a line in our graph.
Let's start with the median for average minutes per game. Right-click inside your chart and pick the option Select Data. In the window labeled Series Data Sources, click the Add button to enter information for the median average minutes per game. Now, we need to define the data point that makes up our divider. Let's give our divider the name of median minutes. Since we want a straight line as our divider, we need to specify a minimum of 2 x values and 2 y values. For the X value, which represents our input or the average minutes per game, we'll assign 33.1 to both the lowest and highest value. For the Y values, the lowest point will be the minimum value on the Y-axis, which is 10, and the highest point will be the maximum Y value in our dataset. Next, we need to connect the two dots that make up our divider using a straight line. Let's clean things up and adjust our vertical axis to stop at 35. On the left side of our divider, we have 49 players with average minutes per game below 33.1, and on the right side of our divider, we have 49 players with average minutes per game above 33.1. Lastly, we have 2 players falling exactly on our divider. On the left side of the median, 15 to 20 average points per game was the norm. By contrast, the range is wider on the right side of the line. Let's add the median for average points per game. Here, we want fixed values on the y-axis. Now, we have a divider for our input and our outputs, and 4 quadrants from which we can select players. Lastly, we change the fill property of the dot to empty. Our dataset has name for each player. Let's add this information next to each dot. We can then use it to build our team. First, click the plus sign next to the chart and then check the box Data Label. Follow the arrow and select More option. Under Label Options, select Value from Cells. Now, pass in the names for the 100 NBA players. The result is a chaos. There are too many names in our chart. We can set the property font color to white. The option masks any nearby data point. Our best option is to make our labels invisible. To fix the chaos, you can set the text field property to no fill. To reveal a player's name, you set the text field property to a value other than no fill. Since the data labels are invisible, this is not an easy thing to do. You either have to guess the placement of a label or go with an easier method. It's time to format the shape and style of our data label. Let's use the same color for both Joel Embiid and Giannis since their input and output are about the same. The color scheme adds a new dimension to your visual. It's an easy way to spotlight a group of players or an individual player. Next, let's give our visual a title. This two-dimensional graph can help you build a solid offensive lineup and even select a bench player. For example, you can build a lineup, the first option of your offense taken from the top of Group B. So Joel Embiid, LeBron James, or Kevin Durant. The second option of your offense pulled from Group A, your primary ball handler picked from Group B, 2 defensive players from Group C, and for bonus, a bench player from Group D. Thank you for watching this video. Join the community for more content on practical solutions for turning data into information.